moving on, I'm going to be covering the next series. Oh, but yeah, again, by the way, just again, if you are interested, please do check out Rokudo no Onatachi or Rokudo's Bad Girls. This series by Satellite Studios. Pretty good adaptation from manga original. Yeah. Moving on, I am going to cover one of the series one of the series that might get a little bit of buzz just because it is more of like a meme. It is Otaku Elf. This is manga original, yeah, manga original, done by C2C. C2C has done a couple of series here and there, mainly in betweens. Um, yeah, mainly in
Did
betweens. If I'm
C2C do CCC?
no, that would be pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, but they've mainly done like smaller series. I think the first major series that they ever did was a short that was like based off haiku. I think it was a winter series, a season series. It was Go Go Goroko, or sorry, Go Shigo. And then they did something like I believe they also did
They did a lot.
Toribochi, right?
I mean,
I think
recently they've done Mahjong no Tabi Tabi. They did Pride of Orange, which had some
yes, yes.
They
nice
do a lot
cuts.
of the isekais I've had my eye on. They did the
Um,
Sword Dance.
One-chan
They
ga
did
kita.
they
Yeah,
did
Sword Girl. Yeah,
yeah, they did
Sword Dance.
Hitoribachi as
they
well.
did
So
Mhm.
they did Tsukimichi, Handyman Saito. So yeah,
Oh,
they're
they
in
did
there.
do Skimichi. Good catch. I forget that. Yeah, Majin no Tabi Tabi. So yeah, they've done a decent amount of interesting series. I think they've had a pretty good pick. Unlike White Fox, who's just gobbling up any isekai that comes along, stuff like
yeah,
that. They've had a pretty good pick. Again, most of their work has been between as probably like subcontractors helping out with main animation production studios. Now, this team doing Otaku Elf is a bunch of sort of intermediate to a veteran experienced team. Most of them, including the director, who is, I believe, Anzai Takebumi, he's collected the core of the C2C Toribochi team, including the chief animation directors, as well as like the other or art designers, sound directors, and stuff like that. He did pull in an extra new person who's a relatively new person called Sai. He, as a chief animation director, he has worked a little bit on Unite Up and Gargantia and stuff like that. But I believe this is the first time where he is fully like another chief animation director. That's an interesting surprise. But yeah, most of the other people are, except for I believe the series composition person. Series composition person is a veteran. He's worked on stuff like Damachi, Jojo, like a bunch of other stuff. Um, Other than that, it is the main Hitoribochi team from C2C. The voice acting cast is also composed of not necessarily like a bunch of new people, but people that have been involved in the anime industry, but just have not necessarily been getting like a whole bunch of big hit roles and stuff like that. So they've gotten a bunch of sort of, I don't want to say B-listers, but people who haven't gotten as much work in the recent years. The main two voices, the main two characters are the human Miko, the human high school girl, I think Kokone Koito, who is voiced by Ozaki Yuka. She is most known for her role in Kemono Michi, or sorry, not Kemono Michi, Kemono Friends, both seasons as Serval. If you obviously you guys have seen that series, as well as the infamous Koshimizu Ami. I don't think I need to really explain her roles. Who is voicing the elf Elda in the series. Everybody else is, again, the other voices are kind of generally people from here and there, people who haven't gotten any roles in the recent years. Kenhitomi, Aikawa Haruka, Kimono Judy. But yeah, that's the main rundown of the cast and staff in this series. Otaku Elf manga adaptation. Let me go over the summary real quick. Summary is that, again, Kogane Koito is a teenager who works as an attendant to the Takamimi Shrine. She was her grandfather and her family have been working at the shrine for generations now. Rumors have it that deity dwells within the shrine, but the actual resident is an immortal elf who found herself stuck on Earth some 400 years ago. What's more, the elf is a total shut-in who won't go outside and has developed a taste for video games. So the general idea is that Elda, the elf, and Coconut Koito, the Miko, is working together at the shrine and kind of having these like day-to-day slice of life ish interactions, interact with each other. They learn more about each other. It's not like Yuri. It's not like a girl to girl Yuri kind of thing. It was just like, hey, you're doing some stupid, otaku stuff, like, or you're bringing up some otaku trivia, or like, bring me some otaku goods, or whatever it is. And it's kind of that sort of general girls doing stuff, slice of life. Um, Brings in the cast, obviously related to Kogane Koito, the high school girl, and that's sort of it. It's like a slice of life otaku kind of thing. There's not as much of the elf doing magic things as much. There's mentions of like, oh, magical power, like I'll use this power here, or I'll do stuff like that, but it's not really a focus. Most of the focus is just on the two characters. Again, Koito, as well as the elf Elda, kind of running around and mentioning all these like little neat as in like like hikikomori, like not employed, neat hikikomori otaku kind of things. And so um this series, how do I describe it? It kind of tries to juggle a lot of balls. And I feel like the reason why it juggles a lot of balls is that it has this premise, but it's not really a premise that sells, is how I would uh, describe it. So instead of trying to really pin their selling point down because they don't have a selling, it instead kind of tries to do a lot of stuff at once. So what I mean by that is, for instance, take a harem scene, right? Well, I don't know, Infinite Stratos or something, right? Yeah, of course it has like the mechas and like the fighting and the drama and all that bullshit. But what is the main selling point of it? What is the reason why people watch it? Is harem, it's rom com, is like the fighting between the girls because they're jealous and blah, 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 all that crap, right? So they know what that selling. So, or the author, and obviously everybody related to it, the editors, the people who have adapted the anime, whatever, they all know what that selling point is. So they always try to drive that point home, right? It's always about like the jealous fights, like the girls trying to mac with Ichika is, whatever, right? It's about that sort of like rom com harem environment. This premise, Otaku Elf, with the elf being an otaku and talking about otaku stuff or like talking about modern stuff, right? It's like they'll have the scenes where it's like the elf's just like, bring me Red Bull. Like she'll legitimately say Red Bull, not even just like hiding it. I don't know whether the series is sponsored by Red Bull or whatever, but it's like bring me Red Bull, or like she's doing like Gunpla or like whatever it is. Like she's playing with VR sets or doing all contemporary nerd otaku kind of like general trivia thing, right? And but that's not really I would say a good selling point for a series, right? You're not watching an entire anime, 12 episodes of an anime, just to be like, wow, an elf girl talks about Red Bull or whatever, especially since she doesn't really the elf girl doesn't really make a contrast. It's between her previous experiences and like the technology VR Red Bull, otaku stuff um that she goes through. So it's a little bit different from even like something like Isekai Oji-san, right? Where in Isekai Oji-san there's a distinct way of telling the story where they switch back and forth between the isekai and the real world, right? So it's like in the isekai, these things happen, and he was like heroic and doing all these things, and that sets up a contrast in the storytelling between that and what the Oji-san is doing now, right? It's like he's a Sega fan. He's like, oh my god, Sega is not the most, the best gaming company. Like, what happened? And he's like going through all this stuff, and he's going through YouTube comments, all that, right? And it sets up this contrast, and that's interesting because you're trying the value of that series comes from the reaction of what he went through versus what he's going through now, right? But this doesn't have that. So it's kind of trying to do the trivia, and then it kind of notices, wait a minute, that's not a very good selling point of a series. You can't make a 12 episode anime series. You can't really make a big good manga series off of it. So then it goes into like the character development between the elf and like the girl. But again, the elf doesn't really have much of a really big background other than, yeah, I lived for a long time and like I'm like an elf and I'm like a hikikomori. I didn't really want to go outside, and I was like just like stuff like that. So she'll have like some weird like funny like quote unquote trivia things where she'll say, yeah, I knew Tokugawa Ieyasu or whatever, right? But beyond that, there's not much lore to the elf. So beyond her personality, just her surface personality of, yeah, I'm just I'm just a kind shy hikikomori, versus the girl who's just like, yeah, I just want to be a freaking high school girl. I just want to be a mature. I want to grow into like a sexy, mature lady. I want to be cool. I want to be a city girl. Whatever it is, right? So other than that surface interaction, there's not that much going on between the growth of these characters. There's not much for them to develop between each other. So then the artist says, okay, well, I can't really rely too much on the otaku stuff, and I can't rely too much on the character development stuff between the two girls. So now I got to bring in the rest of the cast. And so the other cast comes in, and like the cast, you have like the different, girls coming in and, you know, looking at the elf or whatever it is, like interacting with the elf, interacting with the high school girl main character, stuff like that. And so the cast builds. But then even the cast themselves don't really have much of a big attached to them, right? They don't have some sort of shtick or some like interaction that will make them valuable to the series or to the viewer. Because even the main characters, the elf and the high school girl, don't really have that much going on to them, then why would the supporting characters have that much, right? After all, the artist can only write the main characters to this degree. So why would you expect anything more from supporting characters? So even the cast coming in doesn't have that much value to the series. And now you see where like this whole the snowball is rolling. This becoming this trap where the author is realizing he has all these different bits, but none of them are really enough to help carry the story forward. So he has to do everything at the same time. He has to do all these bits of like otaku trivia, like, oh, the elf, haha, look at the meme, funny elf talking about ramen and Red Bull or whatever it is. Oh, but then the two characters are interacting with each other as the high school girl and the elf. Oh, but then the cast is coming in, and he has to keep like throwing this stuff at the viewers because each of them separately are not that good and are not enough to carry the series forward. So he has to keep juggling these balls. He has to keep throwing the different stuff in rotation at the viewer, and it becomes this very what I noticed and I would start telling myself was this has the general flow and like idea, this pretense of a cute girls doing stuff or like a cute girls with X premise doing stuff series, but it has no coherence. It has no driving selling point as to why I will watch it, right? Something like Dark, what was the title of that series? The Bayside, the fishing thing, right? What
Oh,
was it?
Hokugo
Slow.
Table? Hokugo Table
Yeah.
Nishi?
Hokuto Tebonishi, as well as the slow loop or whatever it was, right? The
Yeah,
other
Slow
fishing
Loop
series.
was yeah. Slow Loop was the other one, if that's the
Yeah,
one you're talking about.
both of them had like driving points, right? Like specific, they had these specific character interactions on like the premise that was kind of locked in, and like they used that sort of like trivia or like the premise to be like, okay, well, we're gonna have the girls revolve around this, and then we're gonna have them tell the stories and they had this driving force, right, that made you want to watch the series, right?
Yeah.
Even if the premise wasn't the most exciting thing in the universe. But this doesn't have it has the pretense of that, but it doesn't have that driving force in any of the things that it's providing at the table. So it's a very unfortunate series because on its surface you're like, oh, that's like this is probably an okay series like any other freaking girls doing X thing, cute girls doing X thing, and this contrast and like the shy girls and whatever it is. So it'll be okay, I guess. But then it just flops. It just flops, and it flops in, and it kind of seems boring in the same way as something like a Tamayuda or like a Kofuku Graffiti, but it fails in a very different way. Where Tamayuda and Kofuku Graffiti kind of have their selling points, but then they messed up at selling that selling point, right? I don't know if that makes sense to you, Nier, for example. Like Tamayuda and Kofuku Graffiti, like they know what they're selling. It's just like they screwed it up. They're just like Tamayuda. They just are bad at selling what they had, right? Um, but Otaku Elf knows what it's selling is bad, and it's like it's trying to sell it really hard. It's like, oh, it has the Otaku Elf, it has the girl who's trying to be funny with the meme elf or whatever it is, but it's not selling a good parcel of goods. So it just fails, I think, on that end, and it's a very unfortunate series, and I think it's not bad. I think Otaku Elf is not bad, but it would be hard not or it's not terrible. It's not like oh god, there's all these things wrong with it. The
Yeah, I
audio
think there's
visual is fine. Yeah.
yeah, I think there's
Uh
two things about it.
yeah.
It's one, I think it opens way stronger than like what it kind of gets to.
Yeah.
Because it
And
opens
that's like part of the
with
appeal of the premise, initial premise, right? It's like,
yeah,
wow.
it like you said, it opens with the elf, but then they like kind of don't really like do anything about her isekai life.
Mhm.
It opens on the concepts of immortality for the elf and like mortality with like,
Yeah,
mortals
like
like
why
humans.
she hikikomori stuff like that.
Other
Yeah.
everyone is aging around, well, not even just that, but also it's like everyone is aging around her that she likes and she isn't. Um
Yeah, exactly.
things like it doesn't really get into any of that other than to essentially use it for bits. Not that this series would really need to get super serious, but
Yeah. But it used to have something.
like
Like it
starting
just
on
used to have
that, like
something.
yeah, like starting on that was like way stronger than it not really doing a whole lot with it. And then like you were saying with the character interactions, I think it was pretty weak the way they resolved like the woman in white thing.
Yeah.
Like the reveal of that having been her and that what's her name, the Miko, like really like she kind of changed her life inadvertently, and then
I
that
thought it was
that
gonna
being
go into like a Yuri
reduced.
kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
mean, like not even to use it for like a Yuri thing, but to use it as to, like as like more of a dynamic, I think, and to give her like a different side, probably would have been a little bit better. I think the only
Yeah.
other thing I will say about this series and why I will keep up with it is it's literally just for it's just like yeah, like Koshimizu Ami opens her mouth and you fucking listen, and that's it.
Yeah. You better
and that
listen the
and
fuck up.
honestly, like that's all I need. Like yeah,
Mhm.
Koshimizu Ami's a funny elf. There you go.
Yeah.
And
And
Yeah.
fuck it.
she does very good
So
voices.
so I watched the first episode for this, right? I didn't watch the second episode, but to be honest, I'm kind of on the same. I'm sort of on the same page as Spire, except I feel like the product that this anime is selling is the elf, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
the elf. And like Spire said, like obviously the author is trying to add additional things onto it because he's like, well, I can't like just have the elf, right? Because then it gets like you can't just write a manga about like just
Well,
an elf.
specifically when you mention the elf, what the initial premise, like good uh package number A or like sale item number one, right? Is Elf being like, oh, here's ramen, or oh, here's a VR set. What do I do with it? That's like the initial point. But he and everybody else around him realizes you can't make a 12 episode anime about that.
Yeah,
Much
like I mean, you can't really do, you can't do too much in general with like just a gag, right? So you need to tag on other characters,
Yeah.
maybe some backstory, maybe some general character development, right? But at the end of the day, you're reading and slash watching for Elda, right? Like that's really the only reason to like go into the show.
Yeah.
And to be fair, she's really cute, right? And she's pretty funny.
The audio
Um,
visuals are quite see to see. Again, I think the art director is doing quite a good job.
yeah, I mean the visuals are pretty crisp. I will say the backgrounds are kind of bad sometimes.
Yeah.
Some of the perspective on it's kind of fucked up. Um, but yeah, the animation is pretty crisp. The colors are really nice. But yeah, like I was kind of in the like as I was watching, I was kind of like, well, because in the first episode, right, there's the scene where the Miko girl is sort of in school and just talking to her classmates, and I was kind of just like, I don't, I don't give a shit. Like I really just don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I didn't give a single shit about any of these characters interacting,
You
unless
get what
like
I'm saying. You get what I said before, right? It was just like
yeah,
you have
like
these yeah, like
y-
what?
like unless the characters are interacting with Elda, like I just don't really give a shit.
Mm.
Because she is the main pull. Um, for better and worse. So,
And the
you know,
elf herself isn't really carrying the show very well.
yeah,
Is
I mean she's not like I mean she can't carry um
exactly.
because other characters do have to be on the screen.
Yeah.
But the issue is that when the other characters are on the screen, like all of my interest just immediately saps out of the show. Um, so yeah,
It's hard.
it's rather unfortunate, but
But yeah, for me, it is. I don't know whether I would really call myself like necessarily a slice of like sommelier like connoisseur at this point, but it's like
You're a
at
music sommelier.
sommelier. I don't know about that, but what I would consider for me to actually recommend a slice of life for this somebody is like something that actually has a driving point attached, right? So, regardless of the fact, again, for instance, going back to the rom comics, if I know that somebody likes rom com enough, um, and there is a driving catch or driving point or something, some shtick or whatever that continues to add traction to the series that is being watched, then I will be able to recommend rom-com stuff to that person, regardless of whether that series may have flaws in some other points, or overall, regardless of how polarizing rom-com series may be. Um, Same with slice of life. it- a slice of life needs to have a driving point of attraction to watch before I will consider it to be really something that I would recommend, regardless of how crappy that premise might seem. Like, even if it's like golf or fishing or whatever, if there is something within the interaction, whatever. I mean, even something like do it yourself, right? Like the premise is very like
What do
if you
you
see the club,
mean,
it's just
dude?
like
They are doing it themselves.
But
yeah,
Like,
Spire,
exactly.
what
Even
about
the
the
name,
allegory?
bro. Yeah.
This is a cerebral type of series, Spire. Don't you know the allegory of the shrine maiden elf? And that
What's
she
the
what
algorithm?
you don't understand what she represents?
No, what is
She's
it?
she represents an important part of Japanese history, Spire.
Such
Don't
as?
you know
old
she's an
people.
What? No. No. What? Wow. Spire hates old people. Look at this guy. No, I'm talking about
No, I didn't say
she, she's an allegory. She represents Amaterasu, Spire.
that.
Don't you remember Amaterasu, where she hid in a cave for a long time and she was a neat?
I see.
And then that's what the elf represents. Don't you know all neat, all mystical neat beings are Amaterasu in Japanese?
Jesus. I guess I guess you could see it like that. But yeah.
What was that one series where they had Amaterasu? Was it Sasami-san? I think it's Sasami-san, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I
you're
mean,
talking about like another
Sasami-san
sort of
had a lot of
yeah, Japanese mythology
yeah.
with it. But yeah, I think that is one series. Um but it would be hard for going back to Otaku Elf, but it would be hard for me to recommend on face Otaku Elf as a series for somebody to watch 12 episodes straight. Me, because I can't even be like, no, keep watching it. Something good will come up. Trust me, because I can't really say that. So at the end of the day, I would maybe give this a 3, maybe 2.5.
Out of
Hard,
five? Damn.
out of 10. It's hard for me to justify continuing to watch this series. And I think the author is just he needs to get another there needs to be another set of premises. There needs to be another set of characters. There needs to be something to really grab hold of the listeners and the viewers. Else it's just not working out. That's
All
how I
right,
feel
Spire.
about Otaku.
Let me throw this into the mix since we're talking about elves. All right. What if? All right, listen. What if she was fat?
There's been a lot of series like that recently, to be honest.
So
Though it's like,
you know the series I'm talking about, right? The one with the fat elf.
Yeah, when's that getting
Yeah.
animated? The one that likes French
Elf
fries?
Sanwa. Yeah, that one. See, Dark knows stuff. Elf Sanwa Yasure Renai. You know, the fat plus
oh,
size
this
elf.
yeah, yeah. No,
Hell
I know this
yeah.
one. This one is pretty
Hell
awesome.
yeah.
Yeah,
Do-
I like this one.
wow, Spire, you like this one better? All right,
Yeah,
I
this
get you.
one is way better. First of all,
Plus
it's drawn
size.
by Synecdoche.
Hell
Uh,
yeah.
second of all, it like has a very obvious like it. The artist, the artist clearly is a much better right. I don't want to be too down on Otaku Elf, but he's even being like an erotic manga artist right previously. He's
Hold on. Did you call Synecdoche erotic?
no, I said he
Nice.
is erotic manga artist.
Nice.
He could also be erotic. I don't know. I do not know him, but
Hey man, don't fat shame.
yeah, but
She's trying to
he
lose weight, Spire. Don't be one of those gym bros.
he clearly is a better writer than the writer of Otaku Elf because he knows what the premise is, what the selling point of the premise is, and how to drive it home. It is
Oh,
very like clear, like it was
and you
on
got a
the
sequel.
wall, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, and it's just I mean, yeah, it's that is a better series. It's a better way to write it, regardless of like what the premise is or whatever it is. It's just like that is what good storytelling is. You know where you're going, you know how to get there, you know how to show the viewers how to get there or where you're going, and it's a clear selling point to the viewer. Boom, boom, boom. Keep it simple. And again, unfortunately, something like Otaku Elf fails to bring it home. Anyways, that is my review of Otaku Elf. I wish it could have been better, but it does fall quite short.
Spire, what would you do to give it more to make it more popular? Because I gave my opinion. She should be fat, trying to lose weight.
That's already a manga.
Yeah, we just talked about that.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
it should just be
suppose
that one instead.
it should
Yeah,
just be that
yeah.
one. I think I think there are two kind of general things that could. The issue is at the shtick itself is too repetitive for even something like isekai experiences making a contrast to make a difference. Because if the elf just kept being like, oh, in the feudal world I didn't have this, but in this world I have this, it becomes too repetitive. as well, which is why Isekai Oji-san had actually a completely different kind of way in the way it told the contrast, right? Where the isekai portion, like it had the isekai trivia and stuff like that, but and it showed the contrast a little bit. But the main point of the isekai was that he wanted to tell his sort of past story and how the character's set up, as opposed to the real world part, which was sort of the gag part, right? So that was sort of how he set the contrast, and I think Isekai Oji-san did a pretty good job on that. Although obviously I had my own problems, and during the review or whatever. But in terms of that sort of storytelling, I think it did quite well. Um, I think what would be beneficial would have been two things. One, the main character, the high school girl, and the supporting cast needed to be written much better and much more proactive in terms of like what they do with the elf, right? Like how they kind of pull out the personality, how they interact with the elf, being like, oh, but you're an elf, so can you do this? Or like, why are blah 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 blah, and kind of doing this back and forth slapstick gag a little bit more strongly than just relying on the oh, don't be a neat kind of, right. So I think buffing, um, writing, fleshing out the high school girl and the normal characters' roles and the writing and the dialogue a little bit better would help support even the elf herself, because then it helps pull out her gag shtick in a more organic sense. And then I think the second improvement might have been to have the elf go out and do stuff early, or go out around Japan, not around Japan, but like in the city, and do more neat otaku stuff earlier on, because yeah, she's like a hikikomori, whatever. But the idea is that the elf needs to experience Japan, right? The elf is like, oh, this is modern Japan. Oh, this is Red Bull. Oh, this is a VR set. Oh, this is Gunpla. Or oh, this is made whatever anime stuff, right? And forcing the elf to go out and experience stuff both keeps up that gag shtick, but also creates an opportunity for the artist to bring in um quote unquote outside dialogue, right? It'll have these moments where like the maid cafe girl talking to the elf, or like the elf is interacting with the maid cafe, or the elf is interacting with some like random thugs or whatever. And that allows for more of the world to be organically fleshed out, or like the world to be able to provide a lot of the hooks for the elf, without the elf just being like, oh, here's ramen. Oh, here's anime. Oh, here's X Japanese culture thing. Buy her alone, or like whenever the high school girls provided. So I think at least those two would have been a better improvement earlier on. But it's very hard. It's just I think what's happening. I don't know. Again, this series has like a semblance of like what it wants to do, but it just doesn't have enough good hooks. It's just not. Again, very unfortunate. What can I say? Not everybody can be a hit, right? So, uh, again, that's my review of Otaku Elf. Very unfortunate. It kind of has a semblance of a slice of life, cute girls doing stuff premise, but ultimately it does fall a little bit flat on its face.